Rob here at etrailer.com, and today you're going to be taking a look at the Roadmaster Direct Connect Base Plate Kit on our 2016 GMC Sierra 1500. Now our Roadmaster Base Plate is going to allow us to hook up a tow bar so we can safely and securely flat tow our Sierra down the road. Keep in mind this is only going to be one component for a complete safe flat tow setup for your Sierra. For our Sierra we're going to need a base plate, a tow bar, safety cables, tow bar wiring, and a braking system. And specifically for our GMC Sierra, I do recommend getting a battery disconnect because it is going to make it easier rather than disconnecting the battery. And what I really like about our base plate is that it has a really clean appearance to it. It's going to go right where our tow hooks go, so you can see that we're not going to have to change too much to the front of our Sierra. And whenever we're not towing it, we actually have the option of removing the arm. We can remove the clip from the pin, then we can pull out the pin, and then the whole arm is going to come out, giving it a lot more of a clean appearance, almost just like the tow hook is here. And the Roadmaster name Direct Connect comes from the fact that our tow bar is going to hook directly to our base plate. We're not going to have to worry about that large crossbar or quick disconnects to get everything hooked up. It's just going to be really quick and easy to hook everything up or disconnect it. And the reason why we don't need that crossbar or the quick disconnect is because our base plate is specifically designed for heavy duty applications like our Sierra here. With that being said, our Roadmaster base plate is going to work with all Roadmaster motorhome mounted tow bars. And those are going to be the tow bars that go directly into the receiver hitch on your motorhome. They're also going to work with other brands of tow bars with adapters that are sold separately, and you can find those here at etrailer.com. Now, as far as the installation goes, it's going to be a complete bolt-on design. We are going to have to do a little bit of minor trimming. You can see around the tow hook opening, we did have to trim out a little bit just so that the arms could come through, but this is something you can do in your driveway at home or in the garage. Now, in order to get our base plate installed, we are going to have to remove the bumper and the grill. Now, some customers may feel a little nervous about it, but again, it is something that is completely doable in your garage. You just may want to grab an extra set of hands just because of the weight of the bumper itself. But now that we've seen what our base plate looks like and gone over some of the features, let's walk through the installation together. To begin our installation, we want to come to the front of our truck, and we're going to go right to the edge on the front wheel well here. We're going to have this plastic liner or this trim piece. And if we move to the inside of the wheel well, we're going to have a few bolts right on the edge here that we're going to have to remove. So right in the corner here, right at the bottom, we'll have one bolt. And if we move further up, right on the top, we'll have another one. This top one, I'm going to grab a T15 Torx bit and pull that out. Once you have that removed, you're going to want to grab a 7mm socket so we can pull that bolt out. And once you have those removed, you're going to want to grab the corner of the trim piece here, and we're going to pull away, releasing the clips, so we can get access to right where this piece of our fascia meets the fender. Now if we look straight up, there's going to be a hole there, right here. Now yours probably is going to have a 7mm bolt. So if it does, you want to get yourself a short extension and take the bolt out, but ours is actually missing it right now. So we're going to go ahead and repeat this whole process over on the other side and remove that final bolt that's hidden behind the fascia here. Now this side does have that bolt in it, so again we're just using that 7mm socket to pull it out. And once you have all the bolts loose on the side here, we're going to pull that trim piece away a little bit. We're going to grab just the fascia, this section right above our bumper but below our headlight here. Come to the very edge. We're going to grab just the corner, and we're going to start pulling away so we can start releasing the clips and working our way across. And once you have a few inches pulled away, you're going to notice that there is a clip. You're going to have to reach your hand underneath. You're going to want to push up on the fascia to let it go of the clips, and you're just going to want to work your way across until we can get the whole thing to let go. Now we found that we actually have another bolt on each side right about where our grill is. We'll see there's going to be a bolt right here underneath this part of the fascia. So we're not going to be able to get the center completely loose, so we need to take those two bolts out, the one on each side. Now we found the easiest way to do it, since it's very limited on space, you're going to want to get yourself a 10mm socket, a swivel, and an extension. That way we can feed everything in, get the correct angle, and then pull that bolt out. Now once we have the bolt removed, we are going to have to move up top because our fascia is actually attached to the grill as well. If we open up our hood, right underneath we're going to find this cover that's covering up our radiator and the core support. We're going to have a lot of these pushpin fasteners that we need to pull out. So you want to grab a trim panel tool or a flathead screwdriver. There's a small notch in the pushpin towards the center section, and we want to pop that center section up and then come underneath the base and pull the rest of the pushpin out. We're going to repeat that for all the pushpins going around the edge of this panel. Then we can grab our cover, we'll lift it up, and we're going to set it aside for right now. With the cover out of the way, right behind our grill towards the engine bay, we're going to find a few bolts on each side. So we'll want to grab a 10mm socket and we'll pull those bolts out going across the front. Now in between the two bolts on each side, directly behind our grill, we're going to have another push pin that we need to remove. So again, using that trim panel tool or a flat blade screwdriver, we'll pop out the center section and then pop out the base and remove the whole clip. Now we're going to have one on each side in between the bolts. And at the very corner, you'll notice that we're going to have this post sticking out. Well, there's also going to be a bolt right next to it. We want to pull that out, and that's at the very corner of our grill here, right by our headlight. So we'll grab a 7mm socket and pull the bolt out, and we'll have one on each side. So we'll go ahead and pull the other one out as well. So now we'll move back to that painted part of our fascia. We need to remove that first so that we can get access to a few bolts that are going to be behind it, holding the lower section of our grill in place. So now that everything has a little bit more wiggle room, we'll grab our fascia, and you want to start working your way towards the center. And again, try to pry up a little bit so these clips can go around the hooks. It may help if you start on one side, go to the other side, and kind of work towards the center. Once you have it removed, you're going to want to set this aside where it can't get damaged because we don't want the paint to get scratched. Now behind this section, right underneath our grill, on each side of the center, we're going to have another bolt. So we'll grab a 10mm socket and pull it out. You want to pull out both of them, one from each side. Then we want to make sure that our grill is nice and loose on the bottom, which you can see it is. We'll come up top, and wherever we pulled those bolts out, kind of want to just lift up and pull out slightly, because there's a little alignment tabs on there that are keeping everything in place. We just need to get them up and over that. And we can pull our grill out, and we'll set it aside where it's not going to get damaged. And we'll move underneath our bumper. Now we're over here on the driver's side. The very corner, right where our front fender liner is, we'll find this stabilizer bar. We want to remove the bolt that's at the very corner. This is going to be attaching our bumper to that bar. So we'll grab a 15mm socket and pull that bolt out. Now we're going to want to hold on to this bolt, and we'll remove the other one out of the other side. Now we're going to move towards the center, so be a little bit more towards the passenger side, but we'll find all of our factory wiring and a factory plug right here. We're going to want to disconnect this before we pull our bumper off, that way we don't have to fight it. So we'll come to this red tab, we want to pull it away from the plug, slide it down, and we're going to press down on the black tab and pull the plugs apart. Now you also notice that we are going to have a clip that's holding our wiring in place. Now, even though the wiring is disconnected, we want to make sure that it doesn't go with our bumper when we remove it. So I'm going to pull those clips out and make sure that it's not going to be attached to the bumper anymore, and we can reattach those later on once we reinstall everything. Now, if we move back up top, we're going to have another bolt that's going vertically holding our bumper in place. Now, I'm going to remove one side. We use an 18mm socket. And we're going to have another bolt on the other side. Now, if we move outward just a bit on each side, we're going to have another bolt right here. And again, you want to pull them out, but you want to make sure you have someone helping you support the bumper since it's so heavy. And we'll also use an 18mm socket to pull these two bolts out. Now that all the bolts are removed, we'll grab our bumper. You want to make sure you have a good grip on it. We're going to pull it away. And it is rather heavy, so you want to be careful, but we're going to set it aside where it won't get damaged and it won't be in the way. Now we're over here on the driver's side. Right above our tow hook, we're going to have this mounting plate that's got 3 bolts in it. We're going to remove those, so we can grab a 15mm socket and pull those out. Then we can grab that plate and we'll set the plate and the bolts aside. So now we come to the inside of our frame rail here. We're going to have 2 18mm head bolts. Now the one closest to the front of our tow hook is going to have a nut on the other side of the frame rail here. So we'll grab an 18mm socket and an 18mm wrench, and we're going to remove all the hardware here and the tow hook itself. Once we have this removed, we'll go ahead and pull out the other side as well. At this point, we can grab our main receiver brace. Now in the end here, we'll have a square opening, and we're going to have this round section on the end. You want to make sure that's facing away, but it's on the top of the receiver brace. And then if you look back, we'll have a weld nut welded on that long tab. You want to make sure that's on the top as well, so you can make sure that you have the correct side. So we're on the driver's side again. That safety chain tab is sticking out, it's on top, and the square hole is facing towards the front of our truck. So we'll take our main receiver brace, and right below where our tow hook was mounted, we're going to slide this all the way inside. And if we come to the bottom here, where this little flange kind of tapers out, underneath we're going to have a hole that'll line everything up. Here we can see the large opening where it's going to line up with that weld nut that's in our main receiver brace. I want to grab one of the large 5/8 bolts out of our kit. Now, it doesn't come with our kit, but we want to make sure we put Loctite on all the bolts. Just put a little bit on the threads. We'll follow up that bolt with a split lock washer. And we want to grab one of the large plate washers out of our kit as well. And for now, we're just going to get this loosely started. Just want to get a couple threads in place so the bolt will hold itself and the main receiver brace won't be moving around too much. Now on the outside of our frame rail here, we'll see that the hole for our tow hook is going to line up with the hole in our base plate. So we want to grab one of the long bolts out of our kit. Then we'll grab one of the spacers. It's going to have 2 holes in it. We'll go through one. We're going to pass that bolt so it goes all the way through to the other side of the frame. Now you'll notice that if I have my bracket like this, it doesn't really fit. So we want to make sure that when we put your bracket in, that little U shape is facing up so it can go around that bolt right here in our sway bar and pass the bolt all the way through. We'll grab another one of our brackets, slide it in place, follow it up with a lock washer, and then a hex nut. Now right now I'm just going to get this loosely in place just so I know that everything's lined up and it's not going to move too much. But if you remember on the other side, we don't have a hole going all the way through, so we are going to have to drill a hole using the frame rail hole here as a template. I'm going to be using a 1/2-inch drill bit to drill through. And again, you just want to use that hole and the hole through our base plate as a template just so we can get through to the other side. Now that we have our hole drilled, I'm just going to come back with a little bit of spray paint, and that'll just help protect that bare metal and hopefully prevent any kind of corrosion or rust from building up. So we'll grab the same size bolt from our kit. We're going to slide it all the way through and through the bracket as well. Make sure we line up the other side bracket. We're going to use the same combination of hardware to secure everything down. That lock washer and then a hex nut. Then right below our main receiver brace where that tab comes down on this section right here, we're going to have to drill out this hole as well, and this is going to be for our support. So again, we'll just use a 1/2" drill bit, go right through the bracket so we can make a hole through the metal tab here. We want to grab the shorter 1/2" bolt, again putting Loctite on it, go through the bracket, through the frame, and on the back side we're going to take one of our plate washers, slide it over the bolt, follow it up with a split lock washer, then finally securing it down with a hex nut. Now that everything's on this side, we're going to repeat that whole process over on the passenger side. Over on the passenger side, it's going to be the same combination of hardware and everything, except the only thing that's going to be different is we're not going to be removing this plate right here to begin with. Now once you have both sides in, you want to come back and snug up all your hardware. Then we'll come back with a torque wrench. We're going to torque it down to the specified amount in the instructions. For our large 5/8 bolt, I'm going to be using a 15/16 socket. And we'll repeat that for all of our remaining hardware. And for all of our other hardware, we're going to be using a 3/4 inch wrench and socket. Now that we have our base plate installed, we can go ahead and put our fascia back in, but if you have any other components that you're going to be adding on, like wiring or a braking system, I would recommend doing that now with the fascias off. It's just going to make it a lot easier to route all your wires around everything. So we're going to go ahead and do that and then put our fascia back in place. Now once you have everything else in place, you do want to make sure that you put your bumper bracket back onto the frame on the driver's side so we have all of our attachment points when we put our fascia and bumper back in place. Now one more thing we're going to have to trim is going to be the area where our tow hooks came out. Now there's usually just two little tabs that are sticking through. We want to cut those off so we have a nice open hole right here, and we're going to do that on both sides. Now with the next set of hands, we're going to put our bumper back in place. You want to line up the holes so that the base plate will come through the tow hook holes. May need to kind of help guide it a little bit. Then make sure everything else lines up. And we'll get it pushed back in place. And with everything back in place, that'll finish up our installation and your look at the Roadmaster Direct Connect base plate on our 2016 GMC Sierra 1500.